I want
I want everything.
I want everything too, and I want to talk to Julie Dawn Cole. Julie, how are you today?
Hello.
Okay, and I guess you want to say I want it, and I want it now.
Yes, I do.
I do. I want to talk to you now.
I'm the garbage chute where I've been for 40 years.
So you finally got released from the tube?
Yep, I'm finally out. It's daylight out here.
Oh, lordy.
How are you doing? It's 5 hours?
5 hours
Well,
later.
it's Saturday evening for me here, so I'm having a very quiet evening. My son has just gone off to university. My daughter's at university, and I've stayed in for a quiet night just to talk to you guys.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I looked through the book and read most of the book. I Want It Now, and I really loved it. I loved the book.
Thank you. You said you read most of it. I'm just intrigued. Yeah. Which bits did you skip?
Well, I'm a fast reader, so...
okay.
I'm going to go...
I have been putting pen to paper, literally, and writing this book. It kind of took about a year and a half, but it was my memoirs as a child of my experience of being on the movie. And when I started to think about doing it, I was talking to my mother about it, who had kept all the letters that I wrote home to her. Willy Wonka was filmed in Germany. I lived in England, so I was away from home for 3 months. And back in those days, there was no email, and there was no texting, and there was no Facebook. So we did things the hard way, wrote letters. But I'm happy to say she kept them, and they formed the basis of the book.
Wow.
Yeah, I read the majority of them when I was going through the book. I actually did read it cover to cover, being a huge Willy Wonka fan.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. How did you get involved in acting?
Like most children, I kind of enjoyed doing it for fun. We had a little drama group at my primary school, my first school, and I had a very innovative teacher who suggested to my mother that I audition for stage school. And so I'd been at stage school, theatre school, where we did half the day acting and half the day academic work. And then the producers of Willy Wonka and director, Mel Stewart, they came to England searching for a brat. They decided that an English girl would be better suited to play the brat. I don't know why. And so they were coming around a lot of the theatre schools in England at the time looking for somebody suitably bratty, and I must have been the brattiest.
Now, were you like this in real life?
I have to say I wasn't, and I know why you're asking that, because obviously I did write a bit about it in the book. But my background was a bit more Charlie Bucket than Veruca Salt. I came from a family with a single mum, working mum, who struggled to make ends meet, to bring up 2 children on her own. So, no, I wasn't Veruca Salt. Maybe she was my alter ego that was trying to get out.
That could be.
Well, listen, I have a daughter in her really younger age, years growing up. I thought she was that character. So...
I'm sure there are many parents out there who threaten their children. It has become almost a byword for when you're behaving badly. Stop being Veruca Salt. When I come to the States and come to conventions and things in the States, that's what most of the parents come up and tell me. They say, I always say that to my daughter, and sons too, when they're behaving bratty. Let's not leave the boys out.
Absolutely. My daughter turned out to be a nice young lady, but...
of course she did.
Early on, it was tough. But Willy Wonka for us is just a classic movie. And when you were filming it, did you think it was going to be that a classic?
No, I had no idea. I mean, I was 12 years old at the time, so I didn't understand about longevity of things. I mean, who does when you're 12? But I do remember somebody saying, oh, this might be another Wizard of Oz. Now, I knew the Wizard of Oz, and that was kind of, way up there. But to think that we might be around 40 years later would never in a million years. I might have worked a bit harder had I known that I was going to be around talking about it for 40 years. Might have worked a little bit harder at getting some scenes better.
Oh no, you listen.
No, you did very well.
Your portrayal is just right on. It can't be any better than that.
Now you talk.
The nice thing is that, and I'm still in touch with the other Wonka kids, as we call ourselves. People always refer to us as kids, and I happen to now be 53. But when I see those, we all talk about what the reaction it still gets when we mention it to somebody. You can be in a crowded room, and then people kind of realize Willy Wonka, and then it's like, oh my goodness, you could hear a pin drop, and usually it's, no kidding, that's awesome, and then you see this kind of familiar glazed look and a secret smile come over people's face, because I think it has been a part of so many people's lives.
Oh, absolutely. It has. We were talking about this at the beginning of the show. It has everything. It has comedy. It has drama. It has music, and what a great score, and dancing, and it's just.
Yeah, it does have a little bit of everything. I'm often asked, what was the secret? And I think you've nailed it there, because it had a bit of everything. It's got the thing that appeals to children, obviously all the candy. Who wouldn't want their own chocolate factory? Well, apart from me, because I don't like chocolate. But I mean, who wouldn't want their own candy factory? And then the adults want to see the good child rewarded and the bad kids get it, sort of moralistic tale. And you've got all the little quotes in there, kind of young kids like to spot the poetry references or the music references. So there's a kind of game that goes on there. So I think it does appeal on lots of different levels.
Certainly does. Now, you mentioned a little bit of the audition process. What was the rest of the process like? Did you actually say anything on the first tryout?
Well, the very, very first audition, no, they just came to the school, and we were all the girls that were kind of somewhere between 10 and 13 and around about the right height. Were all marched into the hall, and literally it was a lineup, you, no, yes. So no, I didn't even get to say anything the first time round, apart from I think probably gave my name and got put on the list. And then gradually, after the auditions were whittled down a bit, finally I got to read with the director and the producer, but they didn't have a script prepared at that point, so I read from the book.
Wow. I'm ashamed to admit this, but I still have never read the book. I've seen the movie about...
But you've read the important book. You've read mine.
No, that's true.
Absolutely. We've done that.
That is true. I have read the important book.
It's a fantastic story, and what a great storyteller Roald Dahl was. So you've got that to start with, and then I don't know, maybe the chemistry of everything else that just sort of came together.
I read in the your book that one of your favorite movies is In Search of the Castaways, which that happens to be one of my favorite movies. Growing up, I was in love with Hayley Mills, so
so was I, but in a good way. She was totally my hero, my heroine. I just wanted to be Hayley Mills. And in fact, my first professional job was with Hayley Mills, so I couldn't believe my luck. And she was absolutely charming. But In Search of the Castaways, oh my goodness, I must have watched that film endlessly. Back in those days, you'd go to the cinema to see it.
Oh, yes.
And if you were careful, you could kind of hide down in the dark and then watch the film in the next loop and the next loop and the next loop. You didn't have to buy a ticket for each screening. So I probably one day watched it maybe 3 times in a row.
Maybe.
Well, I'm growing up, I've seen that film at least 20 times. So yeah, I just love the film, and I had a crush on her. So I don't know if it was the English accent or maybe it was my hormones going at the time. I just don't know.
Were you 12 at the time?
I know quite a lot of your fellow compatriots kind of quite like the English accent.
Yes, very good.
It matters when you're 12, isn't it, Lee?
It does matter when you're 12. How was it when when you got to meet Gene Wilder?
Well, meeting Gene for the first time, I met him when I went out to Munich pre-filming to record my song, and I met him then. And as I wrote back to my mother, I mean, I didn't know who Gene Wilder was. I was 12. I hadn't seen Blazing Saddles or the producers or any of those things. But I wrote back to my mother saying, today I met Mr. Wilder, and he's not at all as you expect him to be. He's got reddish hair, and he's not like I imagined Mr. Wonka to be. So it was quite, but he was lovely. He was really, really charming. But I had it in my head. I'd seen the illustrations in the book. So there was Gene, who didn't look like the illustration in the sort of 1970s publication. But my goodness, didn't he make Willy Wonka his own?
Oh,
he certainly did.
He certainly did, and I can't imagine anyone else playing that part but him.
No.
I just, he is Willy Wonka for me.
And for me.
I think he had, that right sort of enigmatic quality that you never really knew whether he was mean.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
yeah.
You just never knew that, and he pulled it off splendidly, and
Yeah.
he is he is a comic genius and an excellent actor, and as I said, I think the longevity of the film speaks to that because I can't imagine anyone playing him. Which I guess leads me to my next question: did you see the remake of Willy Wonka?
I did, and so this is the question that I'm often asked. What did I think of it? And I suppose I'm not the right person to ask because for me, when I look at our version, for me it's like going through a family snapshot album. So how could I replace that? But we had, at the point when the Johnny Depp version was being about to be released, our version had been around for about kind of 30 years at that point, and we all thought, okay, well, we've had a good innings, and that's fine, a bit sad, but hey, good luck to you. But what it did was, in a way, spark a debate and ignited passion, and people feel very partisan, and so people come up to me and they're quite cross or they're quite passionate about whichever version. So there's room for both, but
I refuse to see the Johnny Depp version. I will not even watch it. To me, that's that's just a bastardized version of Willy Wonka.
I do hear. I mean, some people come up to me and they sort of say, "Well, it's the closest thing to blasphemy."
well, that's
for
right.
sure.
That's for sure. I think Brian, you
I
saw
did see it. Just to say that I saw Willy Wonka on the big screen because I don't know if they're ever going to re-release the original in theaters anymore. So just to say that I saw Willy Wonka on the big screen, and it was okay. I mean, the visuals were a little better, but the acting for Johnny Depp was just not there. He just totally revamped the Willy Wonka character, and I hated that.
Yeah, I think maybe to the new audience who don't. Oh, having said that, I don't know. When I come to the States and meet people, I'm meeting 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds that have been brought up on our version. So I would probably think that maybe there is a new audience. But having said that, all the 5-year-olds are kind of going, nah, I prefer yours.
Yeah. Well, you talked a little bit about Gene Wilder, and what was the other two gentlemen that I think were probably the most fun around during and when not shooting was Jack Albertson, Grandpa Joe, and of course Roy Kinnear, your father. What were they like?
Absolutely. I mean, what wonderful, wonderful people to be around and spend time with. Jack Albertson, a great character off stage as well, doing all his vaudeville routines. He used to keep us kids entertained doing this trick, rolling his hat up and down his arm for hours. And Roy Kinnear was, just heaven. When I listen to the song and I hear his voice, "No, sweetheart, you'll have all that when you come home," it just makes me, brings back all that warmth that I felt. He was like a father figure to me. They were fantastic.
So the cliche is true. He was the father I never had.
Yep, he was. Yeah.
Well, I mean, how worried were you when they told you had to sock him in the stomach?
Oh, I was. I was anxious about that, and he kept sort of saying, "No, it's fine, sweetheart, it's fine." Honestly, it's fine. And of course, he was such a good reactor to it that I really thought I had hurt him. But he kept saying, "No, it's fine, it's fine." He was very reassuring, but no, I didn't want to hurt him.
Oh, obviously. Now, there was I did not know this until I heard the audio commentary for the first time. There was a love triangle between you, Denise Nickerson, Violet Beauregard, and of course Peter Ostrom, who played Charlie. Who showed interest in Peter first?
Oh, well, I suppose I would have to say I did, because I met him first. So therefore, I'm staking my claim. Actually, a good question. I've never been asked that before. But yeah, I'm staking my claim there because I met him first. So yeah, he's mine. But then, she was a little bit more sophisticated, New York, and I was just a kind of little country girl, really. I have to say, Peter, Charlie Bucket, was oblivious to most of this going on. And Denise and I, Violet Beauregard and I, we kind of had an unspoken, unwritten deal that we'd take it in turns almost. And when I say take it in turns, I'm only talking about standing next to him.
That's good.
Very good.
At 13, I hope so. Okay.
We were all very, very innocent, but we all stayed in the same hotel, and the only pastime that we really had was going down to the river to skim stones. You know, when you try to bounce stones on a river?
Oh, sure.
Yes.
Well, Peter was a master at this. He was brilliant at it. He could skip stones. He could do about 6 or 7 bounces in a row. And Denise and I would, he would take it in turns to take one of us down to the river to teach us how to skip rocks. I have to say, Denise and I weren't terribly interested in skipping rocks, but we were very interested in going to the river with him.
I bet.
This is sort of a subtlety question. When Augustus Gloop finds his golden ticket, they have a shot of a reporter inside of a restaurant, and the reporter stands in front of a moose head. And do you think that Mel Stewart did this on purpose to make it look like the antlers were coming out of his head?
It's a question that I did ask him, and of course, he is never going to tell me that it was an accident, because he was, if it was an accident, he's not going to say it, because he now takes the credit for this amazing comedy shot. So, I'm not sure who. Maybe it was the cameraman, maybe it was the lighting cameraman, or maybe it was Mel Stewart's genius. But I'll have to pass on that one. But it is a funny moment.
Oh, that's all right. What was the first scene that you watched from the sidelines after you arrived at the theater? The
first scene that I watched from the sidelines, and this is the first time I've ever been on a film set, was watching Charlie and Grandpa Joe do their scene in their house where he finds the golden ticket, and they were practicing for their dance with the parents in the bed and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Of course, what I hadn't realised in my naive 12-year-old world was that there would only be 3 walls, because the 4th wall is the camera. So I was thinking, oh gosh, this is really strange. It's an open room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be a little overwhelming for you. This is the first movie that you acted in, and so when you get to a movie set like this, and was it overwhelming for you?
Because it's not only the set, it's everything that goes with it. You have a car that comes to your hotel to pick you up. I've probably only ever been on a bus before. Living in a hotel, I've certainly never stayed in a hotel. And then, you have a dressing room, and then there are makeup people and wardrobe people and lots of people fussing around. And then you walk onto the set, and it's full of people. Now I think we're kind of a little bit more familiar with that. We see lots of, documentaries on the making of whatever, thing it is. Mm-hmm. But back then, I had no idea the size of a film set. And certainly when we got to the Pure Imagination room, I had no idea of the size or the scale that was going to be.
I played a little bit of your big number at the beginning of the show, and how difficult was that for you to sing? You have a great voice. So
I don't want to sound conceited, but I enjoyed doing it, and I did it okay. Initially, they were not sure whether I was going to sing the song myself or it was going to be overdubbed by somebody else. Anthony Newley and Leslie Bricusse, who'd written it, said that it was a difficult song, and I suppose it is with my adult head on. I can see that. It's got lots of strange rhythms and key changes, and it's quite complicated, but I had quite a good ear for tunes, and, I enjoyed singing it. They got me to sing Happy Birthday at the audition because they hadn't written the song at that point. So, I could kind of hold a tune. And then when they got the song, I went to practice with the musical director at a hotel in London, and he just says, yeah, I think you can do it. and that was it.
And you recorded the song in a studio, and then they play it back and you lip sync.
That's right, that's right. In fact, we did record it twice because we recorded it once kind of, I think they recorded the orchestra version first, then they recorded it with me, then they go back and re-record it, and then you go and do a final version so that, everything, I think they changed the lyrics as well. There were some different lyrics in there. And then I was given, old-fashioned reel-to-reel tape recorder to practice in my hotel bedroom, to practice the lip-syncing.
Well, practice pays off.
It's not bad. When I look at it now, I think, actually, you didn't do too badly. Mostly it's okay. There's a couple of bits where I think my lips are slightly out, but, it's not too bad.
Yeah, I couldn't pick it up. Now, because the goose scene, I did not know this again until, once again, the commentary. The goose scene was shot on your birthday. Did you ever make the mistake of saying, "But Daddy, it's my birthday. I should get what I want"?
No, I didn't. In fact, it was shot on my 13th birthday, and I was kind of nicely brought up, and you don't walk around saying, it's my birthday, where are my presents? And it never occurred to me that nobody had said happy birthday to me all day. And they'd all just, go, "Oh, yeah, it's your birthday, hi." But I didn't, it's usually only your family that make a big thing of your birthday, so I didn't expect anything. But then they did produce, they dimmed all the studio lights. I was told to come into the set immediately because Mel Stewart, the director, had been looking everywhere for me, and he was really cross. And I ran into the studio in a terrible panic, and the lights were out, and they had a big birthday cake for me.
Wow.
What does your children think about this movie and the fact that their mother is in this movie?
Well, it's like anything. I think you kind of grow up knowing what your parents do, so it was never really a big deal. But now, occasionally, I know they quite like the reaction from their friends. My daughter's 21 and my son is 18, and occasionally their friends may have said something, they may have referred to it, and they've kind of had their, "Oh yeah, that's my mum." No kidding, no kidding. So I think they quite enjoy it. But there was a period when we used to have kids queuing up in the house to see the golden ticket.
Wow. Now, besides the chocolate room, how many scenes did they not prepare you for what was to come?
Well, most of it we were not told before what was kind of going to happen. Certainly when our hats and coats were taken by the hands, we weren't told about that. We weren't told about Gene Wilder right from the very beginning doing his tumble. That was kept as a surprise. Mm-hmm. So where possible, they tried to keep the element of surprise to film our real reactions.
And it worked.
It kind of worked, yeah.
Yep, especially when they opened the door and...
Yes, although
everybody...
I have to say, and I know I've only revealed this when I wrote my book, I had actually seen that set before, but Mel Stewart was very keen that none of the children should see it. What he didn't know was when I'd gone out there to record my song a month prior to filming, one of the stagehands or somebody, I don't remember who, had given me a guided tour of the set, so I'd seen it. But I was terrified to let on that I'd actually already seen it. So I kept that secret for 40 years.
And now it's out. Now, was your fight with Denise, a lot of people might not know this, I seem to pick up new things every time I watch this movie, but during the song Pure Imagination, while you're walking down the stairs, you're kind of like nudging Denise a little bit. Was that improv or was that in the script?
Yes, it was. That was something we decided to do together, and then they liked it and said, do it more, do it bigger, and they kind of made a bit more of a thing of it. But it was something that we had just, put in.
Wow.
It definitely worked.
What do you think the moral of Willy Wonka is for parents, for children?
I think the moral is be careful, and I suppose the line, so shines a good deed in a weary world.
That's for sure.
And we should all concentrate on being a little bit nicer to each other and a little bit kinder to each other, and maybe stop being quite so I want it now.
See, I also think that during the 90s and the 80s, we were all a little bit like Veruca Salt. You know, we all want.
It was the I want it now generation, wasn't it? It was.
Yes.
Certainly was.
We had the Spice Girls. I tell you what I want, what I really, really want, and it was all about want, and I'm going to have it.
Yep.
And you know what? Maybe you realise that as you get a little bit older and time has changed as well, that maybe we need to be putting something back.
Absolutely, and I think that's, you know, the economic difficulties that we're having around the world. We're finally waking up, and
It's catching up with us.
and we have.
It is. And
yeah.
you know what? Okay, I like material things as much as the next person, but I also like, being able to do something for somebody that's unexpected, and if you can do that on a daily basis, I think that's what life is about, however little it might be.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%.
You bet. And one thing I've always wondered is, what were you eating out of that melon ball thing?
Oh, it was disgusting.
It looked to me like jelly or Jell-O.
It was. It was a kind of chocolate. Do you have blancmange, like a custard? It was like a chocolate cold custard. It was cold and slimy, and it tasted of chocolate. And as a child, I did not like chocolate.
Wow. And you were cast in a movie about chocolate.
I was in the wrong movie.
That's ironic.
That is
isn't it?
ironic,
Wow.
yeah.
It's very strange. I know. If you were to give me my choice of candy, it'd be something like jelly beans or any of those kind of things like that.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, back then, chocolate, and I still don't like things like chocolate muffins or cookies or any of that kind of cocoa-y. Can't bear it.
In fact,
so they gave me this melon thing, watermelon, full of this chocolate slime, and told me to look like I was enjoying it. Now that is acting.
that is acting for sure. But I think I did see you a couple of times when you are eating candy. It is like jelly, limes, or stuff like
wherever
that.
possible, I would beg the props man not to give me anything chocolatey.
Now, after all the fun, you got on the Wonkatamia, and you went into the scary tunnel of, I shouldn't say this on radio, the scary tunnel of hell.
It was very scary. It was even pretty scary filming it. We shot it they actually elevated the boat onto sort of step ladders, so we'd be trapped in this boat for, hours, watching these horrible films that were projected on a screen behind us. And I won't tell you what they are because I know you've probably seen it, but some of them were pretty creepy.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one thing that was crawling across the guy's face, I couldn't tell if that was a snake or what is that?
I think it was a centipede or something horrible. I can't remember now.
Oh,
I mean, and I'm not sure, but I think my memory has censored things. But I seem to recall that there were some even worse things that have since been cut. I'm not going there.
That's a good thing it was cut. But of the two demises that you witnessed, both Augustus Gloop and Violet Beauregarde, which one did you feel worse for?
Oh, hard call, but I don't think I'd have liked being Augustus Gloop. Poor Michael Bolner. He tells us now, he didn't speak brilliant English back then, but now he's fluent. And he said he had to fall in that water, I don't know how many times a day, and they'd only got one set of clothes, so they had to dry them and then put them back on him when they were slightly damp.
Oh, jeez.
And the water was cold and smelly, as he says. And there was one area that was deeper than the rest of the river that he had to fall in, so he had to make sure he fell in that bit, otherwise he'd bash his head. And then when they filmed the close-up, putting him in that tube, some of it was a dummy, but when you see him actually talking, obviously that's him.
Yes.
I would not have liked to have been in that tube.
And I'm not claustrophobic, but I'm pretty sure for that kind of a scene, anybody would get claustrophobic.
I wouldn't have liked that at all, no.
Now you went to when the film premieres. You go to the which premiere do you go to? And
I was only invited to the London premiere. I wasn't invited to the American one, but I did come to the London one, and I got to present the bouquet to Princess Margaret, who was the guest.
Wow.
And that's a big deal, isn't it?
That is.
It's a very big deal.
Yes,
Very
yes.
big deal, especially when you are 12. Well, by then I was 13 by the time the film came out. But I remember, going to this amazing premiere, and it was on the 6 o'clock news, and I saw myself on the news. I think, my gosh, that was quite amazing. And there were various celebrities there. I remember David Hemmings was a guest there, and I'd had such a crush on him as a child. And Roald Dahl was at his wife. So it was quite star-studded. It was quite something.
And the reaction of the audience when you're sitting?
At the time, I mean, the people that saw the film kind of enjoyed it, but it wasn't liked by the critics. And if you think back to when it came out, 1971, really all the children's films around then were Disney, and it was all very, about animals and sentimental, and it was all very cozy. Well, Willy Wonka was, it had a nasty underlying message, really, which was not very fashionable. So it didn't last in movie cinemas for very long, but it's become the cult classic. So just goes to show you that maybe box office isn't everything.
Absolutely,
sure.
I agree with you. It's a masterful film, and you should be very proud that you of your portrayal. It's just great.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. But the one thing I've always wanted to know is, did you ever find out what a snozberry is?
No. No, wouldn't it be nice? Do you know, that's what I always get asked to say, I want it now. Mm-hmm. But my favourite line was, snozberry? Who ever heard of a snozberry?
Oh, my goodness.
And was your tongue hanging out really that long while he was saying the line?
It was long enough to dry, I tell you, and they painted it with a horrible powder and kept saying, don't put your tongue back in your mouth. Well, if you try, I suppose you could say this to children, see how long you can stick your tongue out for without swallowing or putting it back in your mouth. It's difficult. You start dribbling.
Okay, here's the next question.
You're doing it now, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. No. Seriously, though, another thing I did not know about movies is that how long sometimes a scene can take, and the one sequence before you fall down the chute took 36 times to get perfect. 36
times. And I have to say, it wasn't all my mistake, though I'm sure some of them, I probably did do some things wrong. But it was the scene where sort of spinning trolleys, throwing ribbons around, pulling cellophane, kicking boxes. Right. One time you'd do it and maybe the boxes didn't fall in the right direction, or they'd look rather pathetic, so you'd have to do it again, and then the ribbons didn't go in the right place, or, that went on. So 36 times it would took to get the whole thing right. And, of course, in between each take, everything had to be reset.
Right. But then how many times did it take you to go down the chute?
Only once.
Only once?
Only once, the one and only. I did it once, and I wanted to do it again, and they said, no, we got it, you're safe, you don't want to risk it again, because it was a little bit of, danger there in case I hit my head or my arms or lost my balance or something, so they weren't going to take any chances.
Well, how far down was the drop?
It was probably, just sort of slightly higher than my height, so maybe 5 or 6 feet.
Not too bad. I would have thought it would probably be like about 10 feet.
Nope, it wasn't. You see, that's the the miracles of the cinema. By doing that long note, I'm putting an echo on it. Everybody is convinced that I went down at least 40 feet.
Absolutely.
So I'm sorry to burst your bubble. It was only about 5 foot.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Besides I'm sure you're probably going to say your song was your favorite song in the film, but what was your favorite song in the film?
I still have, really, really, if I hear Pure Imagination, that gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, same with
me. When I hear just those, and I only need to hear that opening little bell kind of chime that starts that, and it just makes me smile. I've actually decided, and I hope it's not for a long time yet, but that's going to be my going out music at my funeral.
Oh, I hope it is not for a long time. But yeah, I get goosebumps with that, and of course with I've Got a Golden Ticket.
Yes. Maybe I should have I Want It Now.
Yes.
Probably. Did you ever perform with Aubrey Woods, who was the Candyman, or any of the other English actors that were in the film?
Yes, I did see Aubrey sometime later. and Aubrey was the Candyman, as you said, and we did a London production of A Tale of Two Cities, which was actually, the only time we met, because obviously I didn't meet him. My character didn't go to Bill's candy store.
Right.
So I didn't meet him on location. I did see Roy Kinnear socially afterwards a couple of times, and I don't know if you remember the actor Tim Brooke Taylor, who was the man saying he was programming the computer for the computer to tell him where the lifetime supply of chocolate was, and he has the sort of line, "I am now telling the computer exactly what it can do with a lifetime supply." Anyway, I did work with him, and I did a summer season with him.
Wow. So that must have been fun.
Yeah, it was great fun.
Yeah.
And of course, swapping memories. Obviously everybody that was in different scenes all had different memories of being on set.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to have a little, I'm trying to think of when it's, the true confessions here. Besides the Wonka bar, the Scrumdiddlyumptious bar, the Gobstopper, and the Golden Egg, was there anything else that you took from the set as a souvenir?
Well, I did. The egg I was given as a birthday present, but I have to say, and to be fair, there were lots of golden tickets lying around. I think at one point I probably had about 10 or 20. But the everlasting Gobstopper somehow ended up in my hand.
I wonder how that happened.
I don't know.
I don't know either. But I won't try to drag it out of you. Just go read the book, folks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all in the book.
Angels. You did Angels, which is a British soap after Willy Wonka?
Yes, I did. So my career became sort of two halves, really, and Willy Wonka then was forgotten about. And then, when I was 18, I was then kind of hoping to move into the adult acting world, and I was in a BBC soap called Angels, which was about nurses. So I played a young student nurse, and I was in that for 2 years. So in England, or Britain, I became more well-known for being in that. Now, kind of much later, people are kind of putting the two things together. I was also in another series that I know you have over there, or did have over there on, I think it's PBS, is it? Poldark, which was a costume drama. That was hugely successful over here.
Yes.
And also I've been in other things like EastEnders, which I know you get there. So I carried on acting for quite some time.
And that's difficult to do, to make the transition from child actor to adult actor, isn't it?
Well, so they say, I'm happy to say that I did survive it and managed to do it and played Shakespeare and did all sorts of other things. So, I was very blessed. I managed to span the two careers.
And then you get into another career that everybody's telling me I should get into, voiceover work.
Yeah, I got into voiceovers. Yeah, I suppose I've reinvented myself a few times, really. I started doing voiceovers when I had my children, so 21 years ago, because I didn't want to be travelling and touring quite so much. So I began to do voiceovers and, voice for all sorts of things. Some things which you may get there, Discovery Channel and various other things. Trying to think now. Anyway, but lots of stuff in the UK. I'm trying to think what you would know. So I carried on doing that and a little bit of acting as well if I could stay close to home. I didn't want to be too far away from my children. But then about 4 years ago, I began to think about changing a career and studied to become a psychotherapist, and that's what I do now.
Wow. See, my goodness, I would have never thought that.
No, you see, if only Veruca had a good therapist, it could all have been very different.
Absolutely.
Yes, right. That's true. Well, that's a really diversion of career.
Yeah, I mean, people say that, but actually I'm not sure that it is, because I think as an actor, you're trying to work out what makes your character tick, and as a psychotherapist, I'm trying to work out what makes my patients or my clients tick.
Very, very good.
Very interesting.
Very interesting, very good. Yeah. Do you miss acting at all?
No, I don't. I had 40 good years of it, and, I've done all that I wanted to do. I've travelled. It's taken me some amazing places. I've done some great things. But, now I work at a hospice, which is a fairly tough end of the things. But when you see that you can make a difference to somebody's life, then I have to say that wins hands down.
Absolutely. That has to be really rewarding for you.
Yes, it is. It is.
Absolutely. And just really quickly, I did not know this also until I think you describe it in the book, that Roy Kinnear died shooting a movie. What was it?
Yes, he did. He was, I can't remember what he was playing, the character he was playing, but it was while they were shooting the movie The Four Musketeers. And, typical Roy, shooting was late and he should have had a stuntman to do this horse riding scene. Didn't have a stuntman, did it himself. I think the horse slipped. And I believe he ruptured his spleen and died 3 weeks later.
Oh, it's a horrible way, but...
Yeah,
he'll be...
it was very, very sad
He'll be...
because he was such a lovely man, warm, caring, and so funny and so clever and taught me such a lot.
Absolutely, especially the one part during the first day of shooting. I actually could have used this last semester in my TV production class, is that he told you to close your eyes when you're looking at the bright lights, and then when you open your eyes, you'll be able to keep them open right before they say action.
I still do that, and it's a good trick for anybody if you're going to a wedding or something and you want to have your photo taken in the wedding photos, and of course the sun is always shining straight in your face. So, the sun or the lights, whatever it is, point your face towards the light with your eyes closed, and then wait until somebody says action. And when they say action, you can just keep your eyes open for a couple of seconds while everybody else is squinting.
And also, really quickly, are we just about out of time, or are we going to go?
Well, we have a few more minutes.
Okay, we do have a few more minutes. I did notice probably about, I don't know how many times it was I saw it before I noticed, but the first day of shooting, your hair was actually longer than the rest of the movie.
Yes. Yes. This was back in the day. We're talking 1971, when all girls were obsessed with split ends. And we had a wonderful hair and makeup artist. But the trick then was that you would twist your hair into a kind of rope, a bit like a sort of dreadlock or something, and then run a candle down it to get rid of split ends. Well, that's fine, but it also, invariably set fire to your hair. So actually, for those that really want to spot things in a movie, you can see my hair visibly shortened by about 6 inches during filming.
Man, I never would have guessed it was that short, because...
You can see there's some shots where, so the first shot would have been the exterior of the factory. I can't remember what we did. And then one of the last shots would actually be probably finding the golden ticket. So you can see that my hair changes.
That's right.
The continuity of my hair length is not what it should have been.
I was also disappointed to hear that you accidentally left your fur coat.
I did. I hated that coat, so I didn't really care. But we were filming at the exterior of the chocolate factory was actually Munich Gasworks. And we were having location lunch within the gasworks in the canteen. And it was a very hot day, so I'd taken my coat off and stuck it on the back of the chair. And it was a mink coat. It was worth a lot of money. And I wolfed back, happily in the sunshine. I was probably thinking about being close to Charlie Bucket. And forgot my chair, but my coat, and left it on the back of the chair.
Oh.
Wow.
And I think one thing I forgot to put on my notes here, and I just thought of it now, the first door that you go through after signing the contract, I guess you call it trippy room, because it was supposed to be like a wall illusion.
Yes.
Yeah. How small was that?
It did get very, very small. I mean, you couldn't possibly have actually got through that door if it had been, a real door opening at the end.
Yeah.
So no, it would probably only been maybe a couple of foot high at the end. So yeah, again, that was a bit claustrophobic as well. I didn't really care for doing that one too much.
Wow.
I would think so.
What? I'm interested. What makes a really good voiceover artist?
Sorry, say that again.
What makes a really good voiceover artist?
What makes a really good voiceover artist? Good question. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously you've got to have the right quality of voice that people want to listen to, and that's something that you just have. But what makes a good voiceover, as far as I know, what I do, and it almost seems to be like my left eye is reading what's on the page and my right eye is scanning ahead. If that sounds a little bit crazy, but that's almost what you do. So you're saying it as you're reading it, but one eye is looking ahead to see what's coming up.
Wow.
It's quite interesting. So sometimes I've made mistakes reading because I've seen an error in the text that's coming up. Yep. It's quite interesting. I know a lot of voiceover artists do this. It's almost like left brain, right brain goes on.
So you're actually reading instead of memorizing the script.
Yeah, you read it. Usually you're sight reading it, yeah.
How about that?
Which is what I was doing for the one promo that we did for was it Hot Hands or was it
yes.
Big Brothers?
Yes. It was
one of our sponsors.
I do quite a few sort of medical commentaries, and my goodness, some of those are wordy.
Oh,
but I have a knack for making it sound as though I understand jargon when I really don't.
And just one more quick thing for us Americans who I'm sure do not know, what is a bean feast?
I knew you were going to ask that. A bean feast. Actually, not many English people know it either. But it's a kind of old-fashioned expression of, having a bean feast means you would have everything. You know, beans would be a really good, valuable part of the harvest. So if you had lots of beans, you were well fed. So maybe if you think back to sort of Thanksgiving when all the harvest comes in or what have you. So having a bean feast meant you had plenty of everything.
So it wouldn't be uncommon to have cream buns and donuts and fruitcake with no
everything.
nuts?
That would be my bean feast. What would I have? Lobster, oysters, cream buns, fudge, but no chocolate cake, thank you.
No chocolate cake.
No.
And can I impose on you to do a quick promo for us? If you could say,
can.
Great. If you could say something like, you're listening to this is Julie Dawn Cole, a.k.a. Veruca Salt, and you're listening to the Brian and Lee Show, and I Want It Now.
Okay, Brian and Lee, yep.
All right.
Okay.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Take one.
This is Julie Dawn Cole, better known as Veruca Salt, and you have been listening to the Brian and Lee Show. I Want It Now.
And cut. That is great.
Very good.
That is excellent. I really appreciate it. The book is I Want It Now, a memoir of life on the set of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory by the original Veruca Salt. Julie Dawn Cole, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much indeed.
Oh, and one more quick thing. I just remembered about it now, that the 40th anniversary DVD collection is going to be coming out in October. Is there going to be a different audio commentary and different...
I, as yet, haven't seen it, but I believe there's a special collector's package with some behind-the-scenes commentary, a little bit of documentary stuff. I know I filmed a little clip for it, and I believe Charlie Bucket did, but I haven't as yet seen it. But I believe it's coming out October the 18th.
I'll be waiting.
And
okay.
And Julie's book is in bookstores everywhere on Amazon.com. Go out and buy it now.
You want it now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Again, we really enjoyed this talk today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Adieu, parting is such sweet sorrow.